What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Mekhi back in the building. You feel me? Today, we have another reaction video today. We finna hit, it's called The Closest and Most Controversial MVP Race in NBA History. It's from a completely different YouTube channel called Andy Hoops. Put the link in the description. Make sure y'all check him out. We're gonna do something different today, so let's go ahead and get right to it.
Okay, so when I'm playing for the 76ers, I get robbed, and I mean no disrespect, because I love Magic Johnson, I respect Magic Johnson, but I got robbed out of the MVP. Or Kenny, I got all the first place votes, but
I don't know about that.
Or third.
Let's look at the year that he's talking about, because we don't know yet. We don't know what he's talking about.
And I told.
Let's look at the year that he's
recent
talking
seasons, the MVP race has always been
Hopefully he
quite
talks
close.
about that year.
You know, you got Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, among others, fighting for that exclusive title of being the league's most valuable player.
Okay.
Despite how close these races were in terms of total points in the voting, for the most part, there was always a clear-cut winner if you look at the first-place votes. For example, Jokic got significantly more first-place votes in 2021 and 2022, while Embiid got way more in 2023. With all the debates and discussions on who's gonna win MVP, the result was clear at the end. Most voters were set in stone.
I don't know about the last 2 years, but this last season that just passed, Jokic should have won MVP 100% in my personal opinion. He had better numbers throughout the whole season. I think they just gave Joel Embiid because of the whole narrative of the fact that he hasn't had an MVP yet. Everyone's like, oh, this person got MVP, this person got MVP. Why didn't Embiid get MVP? Listen, man, Joel Embiid, I don't even want to get started with Joel Embiid. Me personally, I do not like Joel Embiid. I used to like him, but I just don't like him now anymore, bro. It's just
with their first choice. However, that wasn't the case with the 1990 MVP race, the closest and most controversial MVP race in the history of the league.
okay.
It wasn't just that though. This MVP race set multiple precedents and sparked even more questions on how all future MVPs should be judged. The three guys in the running, Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, and Michael Jordan, all had significant cases to win the award. But they also had completely different reasons for why they could have won. This race had a historical impact,
I think
and
this is the
arguably
year that
the
Charles
first
Barkley's talking
MVP
about that
race
he
in
got
modern
robbed.
history that really got heated, to the point where it made us rethink what the MVP award should really be about. This was actually a discussion through most of the
We need to
1980s.
look at the numbers. Look at
Should
the numbers.
MVP go to the best player on the best team? Or simply the best player in the league who led his team to a very good record, but maybe not the best record?
Yeah,
The 1990
that's-
MVP race is,
in my opinion, MVP. Now, wins do matter in MVP, right? Wins do matter in MVP, but it should be the best player in the entire league, right? An MVP, most valuable player. So, wins do matter, but it doesn't. It's weird though, because if you have the best player on the best team, right? That means that you're the best player in that best team, but you have a good supporting cast to bring that franchise as the best team in the league, right? If you're the best player, right, on your team, see, if you're the best player on your team, but you're not getting many wins, or you're getting a good record, but you're not as good as the best player on the best team. I want y'all to let me know in the comment section, like, what do y'all think about this? Because this is very close. Like, I don't know. I really don't know.
widely considered to be the greatest ever, with 7 different players getting first place votes. Anyway, let's break down this MVP race and what caused it to be so polarizing. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's begin. The first thing I gotta mention is, this MVP race is the first and only time a player has won the award without getting the most first place votes.
Okay.
As you can tell here, Charles Barkley actually had 11 more first place votes than Magic, the MVP winner. But
And
so
MJ
many
was
voters
third.
left Charles off their ballots completely, which was incredibly strange. In the past, the MVP voters were quite consistent. So to have an MVP frontrunner to be completely left off the ballot and not get many second or third place votes, there must have been something else at play. Now, Barkley is not somebody who holds grudges, but losing the 1999 MVP is still something that irks him today. On the Dan
Hold on 1 second. Okay.
Patrick Show, he was once asked about this controversial loss, and this was his response.
Ew, why you
I'm
look
still
like-
bitter, Dan. 100% I got robbed because if you go back, it was the closest vote ever. And what bothered me about it was I got almost all the first place votes and didn't get any second or third place votes, which was impossible.
That
And I
makes
was
sense.
really pissed about that.
I would be too.
Why was this the case though? Why did Charles get so many more first place votes, but also left off of many ballots entirely? Well, there were a couple of reasons. Back in the day, Charles was quite the polarizing figure. He's always said whatever was on his mind directly to the media and never tried to sugarcoat anything. Many of the media reporters,
plays a
which
role.
also included many
That plays a
voters,
big role. That plays a big role. If you're a complete like a-hole in the media, bro, that also plays a big role into like winning MVP. Narrative, of course. I think that, you know, for the NBA standards, that plays a role. Like in our, you know, definition, narrative doesn't really play a role. That's because if that was the case, Russell Westbrook wouldn't have won MVP. Who else wouldn't have won MVP? Like if you're going strictly just like narrative and take the narrative away, Russell Westbrook shouldn't have won MVP. James Harden wouldn't have won MVP the year after because he should have won it the year that Russell Westbrook won MVP. Who else shouldn't have won MVP? Derrick Rose, because considered he's the youngest MVP, right? Yeah, there's a lot of MVPs that shouldn't have won the MVP. You know what I'm saying? Because it's strictly because of narrative.
loved him. They loved his charisma and energy, but others, they did not like him, due to his somewhat controversial persona. A former journalist who participated in the voting for MVP that year stated, quote, "The MVP's most valuable player should not be a popularity contest, and everyone should vote without bias, but that's hard to do sometimes. Relationships do matter, and not everyone was a fan of how Charles presented himself." Around the league, there was a huge amount of love for Magic, who was a universally beloved figure and the most well-liked superstar
I ain't
in the
gonna lie,
entire
some of these
league.
passes is a little goofy,
Not even
bro.
MJ at this time had the same amount of worldwide adoration as Magic had. And like
Which
every
that's
other
okay.
subjective award, there's always going to be some personal bias. It wasn't just this though. Another argument against Charles was his team's lack of wins. I mean, 53 wins isn't bad at all. But if you take a look at the top 6 in MVP votes that year, only Patrick Ewing's Knicks had a worse record than Chuck's Sixers. This MVP race sparked a huge
Michael Jordan
debate
had a better
on what the
record?
criteria
That's
should
crazy.
be.
'Cause
Does
his team was,
Barkley even deserve
like,
this
garbage,
award if
bro.
his team won 10 fewer games than Magic Johnson and his Lakers? Was he that much better than Magic statistically in the regular season? No, I don't think so. Not to mention, this was the year after Kareem retired. Yet Magic led the Lakers to an astounding 63 wins.
And he went to
Magic
the
did
finals
not
the
get
next
as many
year.
first place
Or was
votes,
this in
but he got
90?
far
This is
more second
90-91.
and third
So he
place
went to the
votes.
finals.
So it's clear that even those who didn't have him first, they still valued winning more than Chuck's individual dominance. It wasn't just his raw numbers either. Chuck was the most efficient scorer in the entire NBA. His argument has always been that Magic had a lot more help, but at the end of the day, that's how it works sometimes. This also takes away from the fact that Magic also had a phenomenal season. It wasn't his best season ever, but it was his first year without Kareem, and he played just as well as he's ever had before. His win shares per 48 minutes was actually slightly higher than Charles himself.
Now, hold on. I wanted to say something. If this is 91, I don't want to hear, oh, he had help and all that stuff, okay? Because when it comes to the finals, right? When he went to the finals that year, everybody's, oh, Magic Johnson didn't have any help.
To combine his incredible season with his team winning 63 games, it's not hard to grasp why Magic won. By the way, he also won the MVP the year prior,
I'm sorry,
in
these passes
1989.
are so goofy, bro.
You know the whole concept of voters fatigue?
But it's efficient. It's getting there,
it
bro.
did get brought up a couple of times, but at the end, the result was the same.
Look at him.
Not to mention, Magic finished off the season very strong too, leading the Lakers to
why
win
Charles
11
Barkley
of their
play
last
like
12
that?
games.
I've always
Barkley
said Charles
also
Barkley
had
played
a
like a
late season
7-year-old,
surge,
bro.
pushing the Sixers to 13 wins in their last 15 games. And that's why these two were fighting tooth and nail for MVP as the season came to a close. However, there's one guy I haven't talked about yet. The
Michael
guy who was
Jeffrey.
actually the best player in the NBA
Michael
and
Jeffrey
led
Jordan.
his team to more wins than Charles. Michael Jordan. While Jordan wasn't particularly vocal about his loss, at least not as much compared to Charles, he was still upset.
Oh, this is
in a
the
different way.
89-90 season. Okay,
But as the
this is
years went
89-90
by,
season.
he got
This had
over
to
it.
be.
That's what happens when you end up winning the award 5 times in your career. Losing it in a close race doesn't matter as much. But there were obviously a lot of MJ supporters who believed that he should have won by a landslide. To give you some context, here's what one former voter said, advocating for Jordan. If Magic was off the Lakers, they'd still win 40. If Jordan was off the Bulls, I doubt they could find the bus. Another
could
Jordan
find the
supporter
bus.
stated,
What does
the
that mean?
MVP award is kind of purposely vague, because the league enjoys the fact we sit back and bicker about it. The whole thing is imprecise. In fact,
for a
many
narrative, I'm
voters
trying to
believe
tell
that
you, for a
Jordan should have
narrative.
won it, and he had a strong argument over both Charles and Magic. This season, MJ led the league in scoring and steals, once again, but also finished first in total win shares and win shares per 48 minutes. Statistically, this was one of the best years of his entire career, and yet he was completely left off of
was
3
this-
different ballots entirely. 3 voters didn't even consider him as
This
a
had to be
candidate
91.
to win.
I don't know what year
That's
this is.
crazy to me, but if you understood the context around Michael at this time, it's not that crazy. Keep in mind, this was before he won a title, and there was a huge swath of the population who believed
this was
his style of
1990,
play was
like
not
89, 90.
conducive to winning championships. As popular as he was, it was not rare to see articles and the media claim he's a selfish player who only cared about himself and his numbers. That's why he'll never get past the Pistons. He'll never be better than Magic
Yeah,
or
this is
Bird,
89,
because
90.
they are unselfish and they elevate their entire team. That's what people thought back in the day, and it did not help that Jordan himself even said, "I thought of myself first, the team second. I always wanted my teams to be successful, but I wanted to be the main cause."
That's
Then, of course, comes his most infamous quote, "There's no I in team, but there's an I in win."
There's I in win.
From the beginning of his NBA career
But that
up
was
until the
said, like,
arrival of Phil Jackson, Mike never
trash
had a
talk.
great relationship with his teammates and would routinely blast them for not helping him. It started to change years later when Jackson convinced him that he needed to change his approach to the game. At this point in 1990, the Jordan detractors were out in full force, so it certainly makes sense why his poor reputation hurt his MVP chances. Though I will say, he already had an MVP under his belt from a few years prior, so it's not like there was some grand anti-Jordan propaganda. He did say that he felt he was being unnecessarily targeted by some journalists. Anyway, this is how these 3 MVP candidates
always.
stacked up against each other. In terms of record, Magic takes
Let me
it.
know. Let me
In
know,
terms
y'all.
of raw
Let me know, y'all.
numbers,
Who y'all
it's
think should have
MJ.
won MVP?
In terms of most advanced metrics, which weren't even around back in the day, it's also MJ. Though Charles gets a nod for his otherworldly efficiency during a time when the overall scoring of the league was starting to regress. It made him look that much more impressive. While Magic's resume certainly stacks up very well against both of them, he also had the advantage of being a much less polarizing figure compared to MJ and Charles, who were still both very young and their reputations were kinda shaky, unlike Magic, who
seems
was
that they
almost
voted off a
unanimously
narrative.
loved and adored. At the end of the day, the MVP is partly a popularity contest, and the narratives do matter. In recent seasons, we've seen discussions of what the MVP criteria truly is, and there's no concrete answer. Well, I guess there is an answer. The answer is the criteria changes every year, because the narratives change every year.
Yeah.
All it
so
takes
they're
is a
voting it off
few
of
monstrous
narratives.
games down the
I don't
stretch,
like that.
or a few advanced metrics, or some talking heads trying to swing the vote in one way or another. These days, with social media being the primary platform for NBA news, opinions can change very quickly. Anyway, that's all, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.
So that had to be the 89-90 season. So in terms of that, I guess that they must have just voted off of narrative, like they always do. They vote stuff off of narrative. And like I said, that's the same thing with like the LeBron's case, because he only has 4 MVPs. Honestly, Jordan should have had more than 5 MVPs. LeBron should have had more than 4 MVPs, and Kobe should have had more than 1 MVP. Cause like, what? You know what I mean? So I think like the NBA, they vote off of strictly narrative. I can just see that, bro, and it's very, very biased, you know, off of who's the, you know, relationships, like he said, you know, relationships play a role. But I don't know, man. Let me know in the comment section what y'all think about that, man. And I'll see y'all in the next video, man. Till next time.